1634 scene. You know, I used to have a friend who lived there.
It's me, Donald Barrymore. In the mind of this narrator, having access to certain information is key. Few know that while the rest of the world was watching, Elliot Ness throw Frank Nitti from a roof in the 1987 movie The Untouchables. In the film, Nitti dies after being thrown off a Chicago courthouse roof by Ness, Kevin Costner, during Al Capone's tax evasion trial in the early 1930s, well before his suicide, actually in 1943. Little did they know they were only watching a dream played out in the mind of Elliot Ness, as he wanted not only the trial to be over, but also to exact revenge on Nitti for killing his pal, Jimmy Balone. Towards the end, these dreams become more visceral, allowing Mr. Ness to eventually verbally drive Nitti to the point of true and real suicide. Back to the movie, especially in that scene when he's calling him an Irish pig, tips it, and again, in the mind of this writer, led me to use the pig and the cow from the enhanced scenes, see later, also tying he, Ness, and Michael O'Sullivan Road to a common love for animals, and if not that, at least visually against their abuse, just for the point of subjugation. Leave that to the humans. This, as in those scenes, Michael prevents a drunken boy from cow-tipping the one-night stand-up sleeping cow in the Midwest, sharing the story with Ness, and on that same evening, a non-paying farmer begrudgingly gets a visit at the bitter wink and a gentle nod from Papa Satariano that turns one of the two prize-winning pot-bellied pigs to, well, you get it, breakfast in the morning, wink wink, no nod. Put them together here, and this scene would be enhanced even more. Maybe combine all of them into this dream scene, including the return of Nucky Thompson. Yes, Boardwalk's Nucky Thompson. See, for more information, Nucky Thompson dies. No, he doesn't. However, remembering it was just a dream, all the more reason to include the cow and the pig. Also, the horse was used on The Godfather in the future, and dogs in John Wick in the future. Anyway, isn't it both fun and cool to work out things through fantasy scenes in our minds and through such audio persuasions? Again, toward the end, these dreams become more visceral, allowing Ness to eventually verbally drive Nitti to the point of true and real suicide. Mr. Ness will be around to explain that soon. Ness, talking in a dream. Wouldn't that have been something? Referring to pushing Nitti off the roof in his dream. To see this branch like Wall Street? Just give me any reason. Any good one. Hell, any fucking one. Not today, Mr. Nitti, but one day, one way, justice will be served with a good breakfast after you, motherfucker. Let's play ball. Ness is holding the bat that Capone beats Scalise on Selmy and Giorgio after he wakes up having a continental breakfast with eggs. I'll see you in my dreams is playing on the radio that he turns on as he eats breakfast. And E.T. and the girl from Fifth Element are laughing and throwing rainbow Skittles, which Lele knows aren't made yet, so she calls the Duck People, friends with Howard the D, also big pals with Rocket Raccoon now, to bring her Snickers, introduced in 1930 exactly, which they threw down to the people there, confusing them to think the dream was reality. Well, you know what happens when two time-traveling aliens come by, sometimes interdimensional mischief. Like the Great Kazoo on the Flintstones. Anyway, a young boy saw all of this and later became, in real life, the Candy Bomber. He is best known as the Berlin Candy Bomber, or Uncle Wiggly Wings, and gained fame for dropping candy to German children during the Berlin airlift from 1948 to 1949. Candy, huh? That's a different story. Holy foreshadow, Max Collins. Capone's love for the bat comes from a deeply reflective side of him. Babe Ruth is most recognized for his many record-breaking accomplishments and for being a role model for any sports fanatic in the 1920s. He was known as the greatest player of the century. In 1919, he played for the Boston Red Sox and during that time set a record for the most scoreless innings in the World Series. Why wouldn't Capone be conflicted with everything in his life? Hence the meltdown at the pool scene with the fishing pole, which is not only a dramatically key scene, but a deep passage to the innermost mind of Capone melting down. And why wouldn't Capone be truly inspired and wish to have recognition and fame for his efforts like Babe Ruth? In a different life, like the best of men, he could have achieved greatness in other areas. What if Black Wall Street survived? And I would like to see more lead towards the boardwalk character, Doctor, I forget his name, but genius, and lead towards Mizet Mephisto, and towards that, plus more Rothstein, and the memoirs, and ongoing legacy from the actual book of knocking out Thompson. This is what we're looking for. Let me illustrate for you in the sad and tragic voice of my imitation of Capone. Don't forget I was to cut his neck and I was right there. Knickers, so close. He would have flinched, moved, done. And I would get my partner's ransom. Capone's quote. Again, pardon the impression. Let me share with you a quote from another great leader, Mr. Abraham Lincoln. Always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other. Now, gentlemen, I would like to remind you that others' approval is not important. What is important is your desire to succeed. If you have the drive to get where you want to be, you will get there. All other qualities you have pale in comparison to your willpower. The most important factor in determining success is your desire to have that success. Well, back to the bat. On that day, Capone was not batting 1,000, that one. Rather 2 to 3. Instead of his fantasy morality play, he picked a different one. Batter up and boom, the swing arrow was born. Nonetheless, that's the bat that Elliot Ness got and was holding while eating a meatless breakfast. Lincoln was a great man for what he did for the world, and in Illinois, at that time where Capone lived, Babe Ruth was a great sports figure that achieved legendary status around the same time that Al Capone was a great man, as he was not of those worlds, rather in one where the measure of a man's greatness is measured in wealth. It still is. But at that time, he was no different than any mogul or tycoon. If not so, then in his mind. He was just doing what he had to do. And Ness recognizes and associates with that on an anti-level, which causes him further internal conflicts as he too is a great man. However, I spin the true tale through history, and the 1932 is glorified as it was era of the untouchables. Was not enough to iconize Ness until later. No one needs to find a flux capacitor to tell them that the future is past, present, now. In the early morning hours of May 8, 1929, the bodies of Scalise, Anselmi, and Gunter were discovered on a lonely road near Hammond, Indiana. All three had been severely beaten and shot to death. One of Scalise's gunshot wounds had torn off the pinky finger from his left hand. The coroner said that he had never seen such disfigured bodies. It was initially suspected that the Northside gang had killed the trio in retaliation for the St. Valentine's Day massacre. However, this theory was discounted a few days later when informants stated that the three men were lured to a banquet with their Sicilian friends, and while trying to break up a quarrel that was being staged for their benefit, were themselves attacked and killed. Scalise's body was shipped back to Castelvelladrano, Sicily, for burial. I apologize for the pronunciation. Years later, a more popular story emerged that Al Capone had discovered that Scalise, Anselmi, and Giunta were conspiring with rival mobster Joe Aiello to betray him. Capone bodyguard Frankie Rio was credited with uncovering the plan, which his boss initially refused to believe. During a charade concocted for their benefit, Capone staged an argument with Rio in front of Scalise and Anselmi and then slapped his bodyguard, who ran from the room. Both killers tracked Frankie Rio down and offered to bring him in on their plans with Giunta and Aiello. After confirmation of the treachery, an elaborate ruse was developed to get rid of the plotters. At the climax of a dinner thrown in their honor, Capone produced a baseball bat and beat the three men within an inch of their lives before 2 or 3 gunmen stepped in to finish the job.